Hello and welcome to Linux Normal. Today I'd like to share with you what happened yesterday. And yesterday was a major update it was a version update to Pop! OS. And I'd like to share with you exactly what it entailed and what went wrong and what went right with the update. All right, so this was currently I'm at 21.04, and it moved from 20.10 to 21.04, and I successfully upgraded. And there's a number of things that are different. Of which I will show you in the VM solution that I have figured out, and I'm going to show you after this, but I'm going to show you right now exactly what I did to upgrade the OS. Right here at the bottom of the settings panel, the settings, the gear thing that is in the menu that's up here, but I moved it down here because this is my machine. Anyway, you go down here and you click. There's a notification up here, or there was when there was a new upgrade for it. It notified me yesterday, and I went to this here or it sent me here after clicking the notification. And right here, it was the button to download it. I hit this. It downloaded the upgrade, and then it turned into an install button. And I clicked it again, let it do its thing. It rebooted after doing the upgrade, and then after that I went to here, and I had to update the recovery partition to the most current form of the operating system, and it did that, and then that was it. Literally 3 clicks to do a full upgrade, and the process was done. It would took about, on my computer, probably I would say anywhere a total of about 15 to 20 minutes, maybe complete total. And that's it. So, and after it did that, I'd like to say that I'd like to share some misery that something went wrong. It broke this and that, much like maybe another operating system would, that shall be nameless as I look out my window as I'm making this recording. But yeah, nothing. What went wrong was nothing. Everything is perfect. Perfect. Everything works. And there are a number of improvements and things that are different. This side panel for the workspaces is a little different. There's some cosmetic changes that happened. I'm going to open the VM and let you know exactly, because I have mine set up. This is basically how I have mine set up before the upgrade. Now, when you install this most current version of this operating system, it will look very different, and it's not only because it's different than mine. It is a little different than what it was at stock before on 20.10. So it's not just the looks, but let's face it, the people that come to my channel are really mainly concerned with how things look and function. So nothing went wrong and everything went right on mine. I mean, the Wi-Fi still works. I didn't lose any files. Everything was just kept exactly. All the passwords and certificates are all this. They all stayed in the same. There's no mess up with that. All the programs are here that I had before, and they all work. All of them. It's all the same. So here we go, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the process. I'm going to actually go And here, before I do that, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go through these resources briefly, and I'm going to have links on today's episode in the description area on where you can go for these if you happen to need these or are curious about them. The first place you want to go if you are interested in Pop! OS is here, the System76 website, to download it. You'd hit this to download, and what it does is it gives you two different options, and you have to come here prepared with a little bit of technical knowledge of your computer. You have to know, number one, if you have a dedicated graphics card. If you don't have one at all, you click on this. If you do have a dedicated graphics card and it is made by AMD, you would still click this. If you have a dedicated graphics card in your computer and it is made by NVIDIA, then you would click this. And the way you would find that out on whether or not you had a graphics card at all or not is something I can't demonstrate in Linux because it's through the Windows process, but I could briefly describe, I suppose, or you could look. I probably should add a link to something that could help you with that. I will add a link and I will label it for instructions on how to find that out. Okay. Now the beauty of it really is that these two different links for downloads, the only difference in these is that the drivers, they call drivers for these graphics cards, are in these two downloads. And if you happen to make a mistake, and let's say you download this instead of this when you have an NVIDIA dedicated graphics card, it's actually not that big of a deal. Because what will happen is when you upload or when you install this, or when you actually run what they call the live USB, which you'll understand what that is later on, you'll discover that any graphical things that might look different. The resolution might be a little lower than you used to. And it's because it's running off of a different system than, graphical system than your graphics card that your computer is used to using. And it's not using your NVIDIA graphics card or graphics chip because it didn't have the drivers for it. But when you run when it shows the update that you can't do in live, but the updates will show that it'll download the drivers for that graphics card when it detects that the card that you have. The biggest difference is, and the reason they have this is that to just make its convenience, this comes preloaded with all the NVIDIA drivers and stuff for those graphics cards, so you'd have them right off the bat, right? You wouldn't have to download and install them, which is a very simple process. But so I would say, if you don't know if your graphics card is NVIDIA or not, go ahead and download this. You could default. This is the safe choice. This will save you a little bit of time and a little bit of stress, because things will look a little different on your computer if it's not using the graphics card at first, because it'll default to the onboard graphics that it uses for Intel or whatever your chip is, the CPU. Anyway, so this is the place you would go to download it. This link here is the tool you'll use to make the live USB to be able to install the operating system onto your computer. Three things I want to point out when you download this. Well, really four things. Number one, this is a standalone executable. It doesn't really install on your system when you download it. This is a trusted source that many IT professionals across the world use. It's very trusted. You don't have to worry about it at all. It's safe. It's not gonna. This isn't anything weird. So after you download the operating system, then you download this, and then you would hit this for once you start this up. You hit the select, and then you would navigate through your window here to look for the ISO. This says Ubuntu, but you'll find the ISO usually in your download folders. Your folder that the ISO you just downloaded for Pop OS. It'll say Pop OS somewhere. You know Pop OS 21.04. And this right here is the space that you should see the USB device that you have connected already to your computer. So what you want to also make sure to do is before you start this program, already have the USB connected in your USB slot before you start this to make sure it recognizes it's in it. And if you're not sure what this is reading, it should say the size of your USB. I would say just like this says an 8 gigabyte. 8 gigabyte USB drive is plenty big. You could probably get away with just using a 4 gigabyte, which are super cheap nowadays. But basically just use whatever. If your USB, if you already have one, you want to make sure that you take anything off of it that you care about. And it could be 128 gig. It could be a 500 gigabyte USB, which do exist, but you don't need that. All you really need is probably 4 gigabytes, but typically this is using an 8 gigabyte as an example here for this little picture they have. In the partition scheme, it shows it's using the MBR. This is what you want. It's the master boot record partition scheme. There's the other option is GPT. That's generally for Windows and type. You don't want that. You want you want the MBR. And for this right here, just like it says here, you want the BIOS or UEFI target system. There are other options, but this is the safest option, the default. I've yet to see this not work, so this should be fine. Down here for the file system, you want to make sure it's FAT32, the default. Just leave it at the default, and also leave the cluster size as the default. And once you have all those fields set up, if you want to give it a name, you can just type in whatever you want in this volume label. It doesn't matter really. And then you would click, and then all that's ready. Then you just click start, and it does its stuff. Follow the directions. Right here is the download for this, and the rest of this are instructions, little helpful facts on this page. It's designed for people that are very new to this sort of process. Generally, you'll probably be able to kind of pretty much take what it says on this page and just kind of it'll answer and help guide you through this process. It's in a fairly painless way. These 2 YouTube videos I have that I will link. One right here is from a person that has a long-standing channel called Switch to Linux. It's a young man that has switched from Windows to Linux long ago, and he's been making videos for a long time, and many of them are very helpful. This is the very latest video he's put up very smartly because he recognizes the new version of Windows that's coming out, and many people are going to be a little bit more curious than otherwise about Linux and be considering it as an option as opposed to the new version of Windows or staying on Windows 10. So in this, he has a lot of helpful instructions on how to deal with what they call the BIOS or UEFI that is on your motherboard, and that can be a bit of a hang up when you're trying to go through this process for normal people that don't normally mess with their computers as much, and it can be a little bit tricky in getting into it. Sometimes it takes more than one try, and when you're just trying to get into the BIOS or UEFI excuse me, it's you're not going to break your computer. He'll describe it though pretty well. You just have to kind of figure out what the button combination is, or you could literally Google it if you wanted to, and go ahead and see if you can find it out beforehand. Sometimes that can be a little bit of a harder process than you might think it should be. You'd have to put your computer name and model into Google, and also put in BIOS key press, or how to enter the BIOS, things like that, in addition to your computer name and model. And you might find some options. So that could be helpful to try to do beforehand. But it's very common. What he suggests is very common. What a lot of people do is when they reboot their computers, as it's rebooting, they just basically just kind of run their finger across all of the function keys over and over again. It seems a little silly and a little less professional, or a little less than ideal. But I've had bosses that to this day, they just, because they deal with different computers, bring your own devices to work and things, when they have to service such devices and they have to get into the BIOS, they do the same thing. They just what they do. That's what you do. Because it changes. It depends on if you have a Lenovo, you have a Dell, you have HP, whatever computer you have. They all have slightly different ways to get into their BIOS, and it's just whatever key you have to press as the computer is booting up to get into it. And with the speed of the computers nowadays, it goes through this boot up process so fast that window to get into the BIOS has become smaller and smaller, and it can actually be a little tricky to get into it now. Before, many years ago, 10, 15 years ago, the process was a little slower when you used mechanical storage devices, and you had a little bit more of a window to be able to do that key press to be able to get in, and it was a little bit easier. Nowadays, with all the computers quite a bit faster, that process, that window is very narrow. So a lot of times you'll find that you're trying to do it as it's rebooting, and it just reboots into Windows just like it normally does, because you missed that window. It can literally be like just maybe a second of a window, even fraction of a second before that you've possibly missed to be able to hit that key press when you need to before it boots up into Windows. So it can be frustrating. Just keep trying. This other one here is a good resource. Learn Linux TV. He's got a great web channel, I should say, to if you're curious about learning really more in-depth type things about how to use certain Linux operating systems. Like this right here is a complete guide here for beginners in Pop! OS, and he covers some other things, and he goes into detail. He goes into great detail on some networking and server things, and most people aren't going to need everything that he has on his channel, but he is actually very good at also catering to people that have little to no knowledge about computers that do want to enter the world of Linux. So this guide right here is pretty new. It's not super old. It's kind of old, but he's dealing more with one or two versions of Pop! OS before this current one that just came out yesterday. But what he's describing here still pretty much works. So this is a good resource that I would encourage you to use. But I'm going to also go through the setup guide myself in the VM that I'm going to start in a minute here. So I'm going back to here because I also want to mention that this one here, the example he gives, he's installing Ubuntu, which is a different Linux operating system. So everything he does up to about this point in the video here is relevant to what I'm covering. It could help you. But from this point on, he's installing Ubuntu. Everything's going to look way different than what you're going to experience with Pop! OS. So past this point, you're not going to need anything. But up until that point, there's going to be a lot of things he's going to cover and suggestions he's going to make that would help you feel more confident. Even if it's not instructional and it's just repeating what I'm saying, seeing the video and seeing him go through it is going to help you feel a little bit more confident about it. And this is also why I'm going to go over the installation process here to help you feel confident so that you know how simple it is, so you are a little less afraid to give it a shot. So here I am. I'm going to start a VM. This right here you're not going to need to do. This is what I need to do to be able to show you an example of how to install it. So what I'm doing here, I will tell you when you need to start paying attention. ISOs right here. Okay. Now right here, it's going to start simulating. It's going to start covering what you're going to probably look, what it's going to look like here. Oh, hang on, I have to set this up. If I remember right, the problem I was having before is that there wasn't enough RAM and maybe not quite enough disk space. I'm gonna leave that alone. All right, let's hope this works. Okay, now this is what you're going to see when you first boot from your live USB that you hopefully have been made properly. It's going to go through all this gobbledygook. Don't worry about it. Even if you saw a little red fail, it's okay. Things fail once in a while. It's part of this. It's part of the routine that the operating system goes through before it's loaded into memory. And then you'll see this. Now, what you'll see will be different than this. This is a VM, and this is smaller, right? Because of just how VMs are. Now, what I'm going to do is adjust the resolution. It's at a lower resolution is the only reason why it's like that. You will not have to do this. I'm doing it to make it look better for this video. Okay, that's the only thing I'm going to do. Now, when you boot it up, it's going to look like this. Okay, this looks very different. It's because I've customized mine on my machine. And this is a VM, so it's going to be a little slower because it's only using part of the resources my host computer is letting it use. So here we go. I'm going to stop talking. I'm just going to start going. I speak English, and this is all you'll have to do once you see this. Now, actually, before we install it, and this is something I would recommend that you do, you want to go over here. This says it's a wired connection because it's the connection it uses to access the internet because it's through my host system. But you'll see your Wi-Fi settings up here. I'll go back into the settings here. Network Bluetooth. It's not showing Wi-Fi because it doesn't think there's Wi-Fi because of my system. You'll see Wi-Fi up there, and you'll be able to put your Wi-Fi password in if you want to check to see if it's going to work. It'll be right below or right around or right above network for the settings. It's not showing it here because it doesn't need to, because there's no Wi-Fi available, because it thinks this VM is only wired capable, is what it thinks. So let me make sure. Anyway, and you could check to see if your Bluetooth was working, right? You can enable this and see if Bluetooth will work through it. I would say Wi-Fi is the most important thing. If you don't use Wi-Fi, then it'll establish the connection automatically, just like this has here, the wired connection. It'll see it. But if it doesn't, that would be a problem for you, and it may not work for you then. And then you would know that this operating system just simply doesn't work for your computer that you're using. You would either have to pick a different Linux operating system, or just say, well, it's not for me, and just that's it. Or maybe I'll buy a system with Linux already on it so I know it's going to work. What else that you might want to check out here? The displays. You want to make sure that the resolution matches what you're used to. Firmware is something that if there's firmware updates to your computer, many times it will be, they'll have open source updates to some computers' firmware. This is mainly for their computers, which it'll always work for, but sometimes you'll find some for your computer too, even if it's not a System 76 computer. And that would be, I would say as a general rule, unless you have a System 76 computer, don't worry about this so much, because this can cause problems if you do it and you have it update and it doesn't work, because this is really meant for the System 76 computers. I think that's about it. All you'd really have to worry about coming out the gate here before you'd set it up. All right. So if the Wi-Fi is working, if the graphics and the resolution on your computer seems to work okay, if it's using the graphics card or not, you would notice that also. It would be it could be listed in this menu here if there's a graphics card. Right here, it doesn't think there's a graphics card in my computer because this is a VM, not my computer. Anyway, let's go on up to speak English. I'm in the United States. And just click yes to that. I don't typically need to check the keyboard. Yes to that. And what you'd want to do, if you want to replace Windows completely, and you don't want to, you want to just let it do everything itself, do this, clean install. This is for a lot more, you have to really know what you're doing if you want to do custom. And I would not recommend using that. You're only really going to do this if you mean to get rid of Windows completely and only use this on your computer. That's the only situation I'm going to cover. There are other ways to do it. There are other situations you can do, and you could try those if you want, but I'm not going to cover those because I believe for just a regular person, you're just going down a rabbit hole that's more likely to cause issues, and there's a lot more that can go wrong, and it can sour you on the whole experience. So I'm not here to do that. I'm here to demonstrate how easy it is to use. So clean install is what you're going to want. And you pick the hard drive that's in your computer. This right here is the hard drive for the VM. That's why it looks different. So you're going to hit erase and install. And then I'm just going to put the name there that I want, and the password, super secret, as they say. For the user account. And right here, it offers to encrypt the hard drive. I'm not going to for this demonstration. This right here, this option, if you do want to encrypt it, encrypting password is the same as user account password. I would not recommend using this if you're truly concerned about security. What this will do is it'll encrypt your hard drive, so it makes it harder, especially if it's a laptop. If somebody steals it, they won't be able to use your computer at all, even if they know your operating system password that you use because they've figured it out or they've done other hacking type things to be able to find it. They won't be able to access your computer at all because this password to decrypt your hard drive is the first thing that's going to come up. And so you don't want that password to be the same one. So all passwords should be different. Every password you use is different, and I will cover that in future videos and how to do that in a responsible way that's easy to do. So my personal preference is to not encrypt. That's what I do. If you want to encrypt, you can, but this is what I'm going to do. Don't encrypt, and that's it. It's going to go through its thing. This is going to take a while. I have not thought this through. So I hope you're having a great day. This usually doesn't take very long. This takes a little longer in a VM than it would on your machine, more than likely. And even though this is a VM, this is real time. I'm not going to speed the video up, partially because I'm new to video editing, and I'm not sure I would do a very good job at that. This is I'm learning as I go as far as the content creating side of things. But so I'm sorry if this is boring. Put on some music, go get a sandwich. It's not going to take that long. You could fast forward through the video until this is over. So be it. It's moving. July 4th is coming up. Hope everybody's having a good preparations for the July 4th in America. Independence Day. I live in the middle of the country, and we have dogs, and this is not a happy time for our dogs. Everybody loves their fireworks where we live, and especially the kids, and they've been warming up for the last week or two. And hear M80s going off once in a while. Hear those little snap things that you can throw onto the ground for the little kids. You've been hearing those here and there. And every little sound, we have two dogs. One's a beagle and the other one's they call them chugs. And it's a combination of pug and chihuahua. And neither one of them, they stress out and they bark every time they hear it. It's lovely. Anyway, here we are. So that's done. So it wasn't too long, right? Just a little bit of time there. And right here, you're going to click restart device. You could shut it all the way down. I would recommend that you just restart your device. You're going to see some gobbledygook like that. Then your computer is going to restart. That was the window for the VM. Now, hopefully this comes back up. Any issues that looks like it's going. It's going to take a minute. This is a little slower than you're going to experience on actual hardware. This program, okay. Now this VM is defaulted back to a different resolution. You're not going to, yours is not going to look like this. It's this gray area is going to cover the entire screen. Put in the password. I'll fix the resolution once it loads up here. Going to the settings, back to display, and now with it fully installed on your computer, your hardware, any changes you make like this will be permanent, or until you decide to change again. This right here is the welcome screen. You go through this, hit next, you're typing English US, you can preview it if you'd like. Right here they're welcoming you to Pop OS, and the layout, this dock down here, if you don't like this look all the way across like that, you can click no dock, and there's no dock, and this is probably going to be a little scary for you. What I do, and part of my customization, is that I pick the dock that looks like this. It's a little more Apple-ish, you know. It's got rounded edges too, Look at that. Take that, Windows 11, right? Um, right here, here's where you can customize this right here. This right here is the workspaces tab, where you have workspaces, different that you might be familiar with using. You may not be, but I can explain those a little bit further later. Applications. These are all the applications that are pre-installed in your system. Not very many, but there's enough. You have your Office apps that cover, writing, word processing, and spreadsheets and whatnot. You have a calendar. This is the software station that I'll show you in a few minutes here. These are other things. This is the web browser. This is the email client. Odds are, if you're a novice computer user, the main places, the main things you're going to be using are going to be the web browser, email client, maybe the calendar, possibly the contacts, obviously the Office things to write, letters and whatnot. You may not use that too much. Then you have the pop shop. This also is how you're going to update your computer too. It'll let you know when there's updates available, just like it did here on this fresh install. Other things, the terminal is something that I have pledged that we will avoid. We may as well not even have this here. I'm not going to get rid of it, but don't worry about that. You won't have to use it. Weather app. If you're a little older and you're kind of a weather junkie, I know my father-in-law is. Boom. It works great. I'll demonstrate that in a minute. You have these buttons here. For right now, I would say if you want, leave them up there. These are for sure places you can click to get to certain things or to use certain things you don't know the shortcuts for quite yet. So I would leave them up there. It looks a little weird. I don't have these on mine because I don't like stuff up there like that. The date and time is in the center. You can move it, to the left. It's over there now. To the right. Over here. A lot of people are used to seeing it over here. So they put it there. I like it in the center personally, so I keep it in the center because the notifications are going to drop down from that. The super key it's talking about for this launcher is the Windows key. Press that, and you can look for any program you might have. See Firefox. I just pressed fire or typed fire, and it's already, it's going to complete it. And there you go, and you could start that up if you want. I'm not going to right now because we haven't. Actually, I could. Typically, you want to set up your Wi-Fi first before you do that. In this case, it doesn't matter because it's already hooked to the internet because it thinks it's wired in because of the tool I'm using to demonstrate to you. Gestures. I like keyboard and mouse. I hate touchpads. If you're a touchpad person, whoa, look at that. That's not good. That was my own system, and that was my recording device. Look at that. I used my touchpad possibly for the very first time. I do not like using it. I'm not going to cover that. Privacy, location services. If you want that weather app to work, you're going to want to turn this on. Okay, so that I'm able to demonstrate it, I'm going to turn it on. Some people that are very privacy conscious don't want this on. I'm turning it on. I think most normal people, it's fine. So, I'm putting in, since I'm in the center of the United States, I'm putting that in for the central time that I'm on. That's not my location. Doesn't need to be. Right here, you can set up your online accounts. If you set up, say, Google, put in your Google stuff, it's going to set up a security certificate for your system, and therefore, whenever you use, say, the email client, you don't have to set that up on its own. It's automatically going to have the credentials through this setup here, overall setup, to use for that. Same way with Microsoft and other things that you might want to log into. I think mainly for most normal people, Google and Microsoft are the two things that they're going to want to have connected to their computer. I'm going to skip that for now for this, but it works great. I can tell you from first-hand experience. Start using Pop! OS and you're done. Okay, so to change the wallpaper, if this is a little too loud, you can do it two ways. You can go to the gear, or you can right-click on the desktop itself, and you can change background. And it's going to go right straight. Well, it's basically opening up that. It should go right straight to it. Oh yeah, it did actually. I'm sorry. Background, boom. And then it gives you some other options. Let's just change it to change it. Let's go there. Kind of like that. Change the appearance dark, or you can go light. This will change the windows a little bit. I like the dark. It defaults to dark evidently. So that's what I use. And here, these are options for the dock. You can disable the dock just like we saw before. Launchers in the dock. You can get rid of some of these launchers. Right here is the launcher for that. It's right here in the dock. This right here is for the workspaces. It's also over here. So if you want to get rid of these here and just keep them in the dock, so you don't, so because you just think this looks, you don't like how that looks, you can go back here, and this top bar section, and this is in desktop general, you can get rid of those two things and just keep them in the launcher. If you'd rather put your own programs in here that you use every day and you don't want this super wide going almost all the way out to the edges, you could, you know, put those back in, and then when you go to the dock, you can get rid of them on the dock and say, oh, okay, no, I don't want to do that. Take that off the dock. Take that off the dock, take that off the dock, all that stuff, right? And then you have a nice small dock that you can customize specifically to your liking, or you can leave them on. I think most people that I'm going to cater to with this channel are going to prefer to just point and click for anything and everything. So keeping as much on the dock that can help you do what you want is probably going to be preferred. So how about we just get rid of these like that? You don't have to do it like this. I'm just trying to guess what people might like. The super key action, the default action, if you hit it, is to be able to search for programs on your system, like Firefox. And there's Firefox, right? That's your default web browser. Or you can make it be if you hit workspaces. Now I hit the super key and it shows the workspaces. You can switch to the workspace. And now, oh no, where'd it go? Well, that's fine. Hit it again. It's actually here. It's still open. It's just if you want this out of your way and you only have one monitor, like if you're on a laptop or something, and you want to work on something else, but you don't want this cluttering up the screen, you can actually move to a different screen or have a new screen and then go back to here when you want to use that. Click on that like that. Now, a shortcut that's very easy for me to remember, I'm going to share with you, is if you hit the super key and the control key and the up and down arrow, this moves to that next one. And then if you have another program open, let's open something else. Let's open the file manager. Okay, so we have that open on this window. If you do super key, control, and down again, it's a new desktop already. And these right here are still open. You just have a nice blank screen to do whatever you plan on doing. And then when you want, oh, well, I need to go back to my files I was messing with. You go back up here, you go to the next one, you go to there, you go back up again with the control super key up, and get back to here to this screen that has this. Or you can do it like this. I'm going to close that. This is dynamic. Whenever you open one, it's always going to have a second one ready to go. Okay, it's the workspaces. You could also have it just do the applications. Now I'm going to hit the super key here, and it shows the applications in here. There's the search bar in here, and you can do just like the launcher, Fire, and it shows Firefox. And what this does, in addition to showing what's on your computer that you just searched for, it also searches in PopShop for other programs that are either related to what you searched. They're usually related. As you can see, the spelling of fire and barrage are completely different. For whatever reason, it connects it. It thinks this is I don't know why. Extra stuff comes in from PopShop. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. I very rarely, if ever, use this to search for programs. Matter of fact, I very rarely actually go in here unless I've installed something fresh and I haven't put it on my bar. I like everything on my bar. That's how I work. I'm going to keep this on the launcher for now, though. I actually don't even use the launcher very often because the programs I use consistently, I keep on a bar down here and I just click on what I want. That's just my method. So let's go ahead and hit the PopShop. And this little eye is kind of searching around. It's going to search for updates. This right here, installed, are things that are installed on your system that needs to update. You press that. And there's updates here for this in other LibreOffice. Evidently it's got some updates for it. What I typically do, I just hit update all and don't worry about it. I have yet to have anything get broke. This is nothing. Things get broke through updating on Windows far more often than in things get broke on Pop OS. I am really, it's amazing when I look at the news. Every update cycle, Windows breaks something. Always, every single Patch Tuesday, when I look at my tech news, I hear about Windows breaking something. Does that affect everybody all the time? No, but they still break something every single time. Sometimes it's severe, files getting mysteriously deleted, certificates lost, whatever. Sometimes it's just really quirky things like, I don't know, the look of a certain icon or whatever. But they usually break something. They didn't always be quite that bad. Once in a while they would break something, but it's been pretty bad for pretty much with the emergence of Windows 10. So I have moved off of Windows personally, and I've been on Pop OS for quite some time now, and I am loving it. I mean, I've been on it for probably about a year, a little over a year maybe, and it has yet to fail me at all. And this is not a System 76 computer. I installed it on a Windows computer. It's a laptop. So, right there, all the updates are done. Now, actually, let me open this again. I'm going to look at, we need to look at some things so you understand what it's doing a little bit. Because there are some things that you might want to get that you may not find in this. I would not recommend downloading anything to install on your system like you're in the habit of doing with Windows. In my opinion, if you can't find it in this PopShop, then unless you really, really need it, then just consider it unavailable. Okay, this is the settings and source code. You want to keep all these on. because this is going to make sure that your hardware continues to work with the updates and everything that is in this operating system. You have updates here, important security, of course you want those. Recommended updates, unsupported updates, that sounds scary, like, ooh, why would I want something unsupported? I wouldn't take that. No, this in the back ports means that you want to make sure that it's going to update programs that are legacy things and things that are that you might need. It's going to work behind the scenes. It's just best to keep all these up. Extra sources. Right here, these are the sources. Sometimes when you add things through downloading, it's going to add the source here to keep so that this can update it automatically. Flat packs are programs that it's a little bit of a newer thing in Linux, but these programs tend to be larger and but they're more current. So if you have the space and you want to make sure you have the latest version of something like Zoom or something, get the flat pack. There are other more technical reasons why you may or may not want to choose this, but most normal people that don't want to think too deep about things just know that these are larger programs. They're going to take up more space, but they might be a little bit more current and get updated a little bit more frequently than you'll find with the other programs that come from the Pop! OS or Ubuntu repositories for some things. So here you got Steam for a game, right? And right here it's going to show, it says this is the Debian or Pop! OS version, or you go to the flat pack, get a flat pack version of it. This is going to be a little bit more current, and it's going to be slightly larger, I do believe. 965. What's this? Actually, this is bigger. Wait a minute. What? Oh no, this is way bigger. Okay, I'm sorry. So some things I would recommend go with the Pop! OS version of things unless you really know you want the latest version of something. You really need it, because these repositories are curated and maintained with pretty high standards. Flat packs, because things are pushed out a lot quicker, and it's one single repository. I'm not so sure how thorough their curation process is, considering how current everything is updated very quickly. That's sort of a habit of mine. Unless I know I really want and need the most current version of something, I go with this. It takes up less space and that works fine. So yeah, if you want to play games, Steam, Lutris is another gaming tool that people use. There's lots of guides on the internet how to use both those two things in Linux. We'll see what my audience wants. And you've seen me update with this. This is where you get new software, and it's also how you update it. So there's that. A lot of times, like I said, you can right-click. This will open a terminal, which you don't want to, who cares about the terminal, right? When you can click and have it do what you want, right? Desktop icon settings. This is actually new to me, whether it's not new to the system or not. Oh, you can have icons for, if you like icons on your desktop, more like a Windows site type of situation, you can flip these on. So yeah. That's where you'd go for the show hidden files or not. This might be a little bit beyond the scope of my channel. But if you want to have your home folder on, instead of going down here to the files. See right here, you get to the files and it opens up to your home folder automatically, right? Or you could have it on here and it opens up to the home folder. You know, so it's using this right here. So if you want to be able to double click on something on your desktop to be able to go there, fine. This right here is the trash. As you can see, it's in the same program as the file manager. So if you got this, you don't really need this unless you just want to go straight to it, I suppose. I don't know. I'd like a clean desktop. It's the whole point of me having a dock down here, so I never have these enabled. I keep them off. So that's it. This is the most current Pop! OS. This is how you would install it, and this is how you would update it. It's just by using this. And anything beyond that, just use it and enjoy. No, I said I was going to cover the weather, didn't I? Okay. So if you click the time here, you got a calendar, which could be connected to your, say, Google Calendar or whatever, if you want to add those things, or Microsoft or whatever. Right here is the weather app, and I've just revealed my location, so lovely. Yes, it's Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm going to leave that. I don't care. And this is it's a little limiting as far as the weather goes. The current weather in the United States seems to be sparing my location of the country quite nicely. I feel really bad about the heat wave that's going on, but it's eventually going to get here. Everything moves east from the west. So, but for right now, it's kind of going all the way around. It's going up and then dipping down and right around and then up the east coast. The middle of the country is being spared by a lot of the heat wave that's going on. So, do not disturb. If you don't want this doing notifications because you don't want to be disturbed, then hit that and it will not. You see a little line through the bell, or you keep it on. Whenever there's updates, it's going to show up here. It's going to notify you there. If you have your email set up, it'll notify you received email. All the typical notification type things will show up there. Excuse me. And that's it. I think I'm about done with this video. I plan to start getting a little bit more organized and doing more scripting. I wanted to get this video out though, and to make sure I got more content on my channel. I have personal goals of being more focused with a script instead of rambling like I do. And I also plan on using the VM more to demonstrate how to do things within this operating system. But this right here, what I've given you, is enough for you to get started. You'd have access to the internet with the web browser. And you could even check your email with your web browser. It's enough to kind of get started. You know how to get new software, and you can explore certain things, install certain things that you're used to having on Windows. What you can't find for this operating system, and that you're used to using in Windows, that's another topic I plan to cover. The open source equivalents, or ways to get Windows applications to work on Linux to an acceptable level of dependability. It is possible. So that'll be a future video also. So thanks for your time. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.